Let's do
There we
this.
go.
Yep.
Okay. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to episode 20 of Maker That Money, the podcast conversation where two makers talk about taking your passion project to the next level. I am Pooch of Repkord, just to go old with it. You can find us at Repkord on all the things, and with me, my trusty sidekick here, Andrew. Good morning, Andrew.
Good morning, Pooch. How are you?
I'm great. How are things at the Empire of Sticky this week?
Oh, it's been a hectic week. We got Murph coming up, so
That's
just
exciting.
doing tons of planning.
And as our special guest today, very excited to welcome Stefan. Is it Hermann? Now, am I saying it right? Hermann.
Yeah. That's Hermann. Hellman.
Hermann.
Yeah.
Okay.
Hellman. Stefan
I
Hellman.
apologize.
Would be like the German pronunciation.
My German accent is
German's
terrible.
a bit rusty.
Yeah, or non-existent. But you may know him.
No worries. No worries.
You may know him from the famous YouTube channel now, CNCKitchen, where he does a lot of featuring, obviously, 3D printing stuff, but obviously other maker hobbies as well, CNC and all kinds of stuff. And very well known for his technical prowess and his attention to detail. I always love watching your content, Stefan, because you put in, obviously, so much work in scripting it out ahead of time and in your preparation, and I know that is not an easy thing. So welcome to the show. We're delighted to have you.
Thank you very much for the introduction.
Yeah, I hope that does it some degree of justice.
Yeah, for me it's rather good night because it's already like 6 p.m. at night. So good night, everybody.
Yes.
Or good evening.
Good evening. Yeah, time zones are hard. We're just getting our day started, and Stefan's already rounded out his week. So hopefully ours ends as well. But we appreciate having you, given that it's a Friday night, and I'm sure you've got all these amazing Friday night plans that you must be missing out on as a result of having to be here with us. So thank you for that.
Friday night is pizza night for me, so pizza's gonna be delayed for a little bit.
Now, is cooking one of your many skills as well? Do you enjoy cooking and food preparation?
Well, this, of course, is the reason why it's called CNCKitchen, because like the first idea for the channel was doing engineering, like cooking on the channel, talking about like protein denaturation and things like that, because I really enjoy cooking. I love eating, even though I don't really look like that maybe. But yes, I cook a lot, or we cook a lot at home, and I like cooking as well as eating. So yeah, it did not really, there wasn't enough time for the cooking content on the channel. There have been some sous vide cooking on the Prusa during live streams a bunch of times, but not that much more.
So there's the first answer for everybody. That's where the kitchen actually comes from. So in CNCKitchen, and I suppose over time you would follow the analytics and say, well, maybe the cooking content hasn't done as well as some of the 3D printing or other types of thing, and it's nice to have that as a tool to.
There is actually, there is actually a second channel called CNCKitchen 2, where there is a video about like a vegetarian bolognese sauce. But this was basically the only video.
Now, do you wear a
nice? I made right in the beginning, and then I noticed
chef's hat.
Yeah. Do you wear a chef's hat in the on the second?
No, I don't.
There's opportunity there.
No, I actually don't, because I think for the first year or so, I didn't show myself on the video because I never feel really comfortable standing in front of the camera. So yeah, that changed at some point. Still feel a bit uncomfortable, but it's gotta be all right.
It doesn't show, and that dovetails in nicely with just. The first thing I want to talk about is, obviously, as a content creator and English not being your first language, you have a phenomenal challenge, obviously, in creating content that is tailored to an English speaking audience and stuff like that. And so I can only imagine how much work that is for you to go through. Tell us about what your process has been and how you've become more comfortable with that over time.
So, well, the process is usually I do a bunch of stuff. I try to record as much as possible, write down a couple of notes, and when everything is done, yeah, just scripting it down and trying to get it into a format where it has a bit of like structure in the end, so that it is easier for me to convey the idea and also the results of the analysis I did or the project that I did. um, because I always want viewers to like finish a video and be at least a bit entertained in some way, but also to have learned something. This is basically my goal for every video, and I'm trying to make that as good as possible. I'm not a really great writer. I have always been one of the worst English students in school. But I started watching sitcoms, American sitcoms, after I did my A levels, and that tremendously helped me. American Dad, Family Guy, and stuff like that.
Nice.
That's awesome, man. And I gotta say, like I said, it really shows how much work you do toward preparation. I think it's enviable by a lot of content creators here that you actually put a lot of your prep work, and I love how your videos are they're so well curated, because I know you spend that time doing the scripting ahead of time, and you typically voice over everything, right? So you're not shooting yourself the same way in front of the camera that a lot of people do, and I think that creates a completely different kind of content.
It definitely does. My problem is that I usually start rambling quite fast. Maybe you have already noticed. And having a script makes sure that I keep the rambling as little as possible, and trying to get to the point as quick as possible. And as I said, so in the beginning it started, I wasn't really comfortable doing just everything right out of my chest. And so yeah, writing a script was the obvious way to go. Actually, I think my first video that I ever did was unscripted, but after that I started writing a script and doing the voiceover. And I actually envy those channels that don't need to do the scripting and can just stand in front of the camera and talk everything directly without doing all of the preparation work.
Yeah, it's a different feel for sure. But I think you've created a good point of distinction, for yourself and it works so well with your content, because you get very technical with what you do, and it's really hard with technical information, I think, to shoot from the hip, as we say.
Oh,
Another American.
it's almost impossible, right?
Yeah.
There's
Yeah, because
some do have the gift to do that, but I don't. So it's basically the only way I can do it. But I don't know. Maybe in the future I try different formats and see how that works out for me. But I think for the moment it's just the best thing, especially not being like a native speaker.
Mm-hmm. So we love to talk about business on this particular podcast. Specifically people who got their starts as makers, and so we've talked to a lot of people that typically start with like a product that they're trying to sell or develop and stuff like that. Obviously, as a content creator, still very much a business, very different type of business, right? Because your product is your videos, and you're using a medium that is predominantly, the expectation is that content is free. So obviously the better performing your video is, the better the monetization will do. And so it creates a completely different business model for you. Could you talk for a minute about what it's like, trying to be true to what you want to say, but also being mindful of that this is how you make your living, and you need to be able to earn money with what you do?
It's a tough decision, especially if you're thinking about affiliate sales and things like that. I had the advantage right from the start that I did this like on the side, so I wasn't really depending on the money that came in from like videos or affiliate sales. And that definitely helps to build trust in the community. But as soon as you're getting to the point where this is your only source of income, you need to way more think about how you formulate stuff, that it's still that you can still transfer the message the right way and not be a shill in the end. But it is
That
hard
term
to
shill.
find a way between.
That term "shill" keeps coming up these days, doesn't it?
Yep.
Sorry, you were saying it's very hard to find that balance sometimes.
It's really hard to find that balance sometimes. But I think that is the task that we need to master as content creators, because otherwise we're losing our trust from the community. And I'm trying to do my best, but it's not always easy.
No, and you're not given a lot of grace as a content creator a lot of time, because obviously your audience is the internet, and while there are plenty of great actors, there's also just terrible people out there that have nothing better to do than troll and do stuff, and it's hard as a content creator, somebody that puts a lot of work into creating this stuff, to see that negative feedback and to not internalize that in a way that's a very human thing. The same way that Andrew and I have a hard time taking criticism sometimes, maybe on the expectation of somebody who bought a product and was disappointed by it, right? You have the downside of having a much more direct path. Like, people have there's literally the comments that are right on the video, so you have like immediate, unfiltered, raw feedback, for better or worse. What does that feel like to you?
It is hard because, like, if you're having 100 very positive comments, just one negative one can really bring you down. But I'm in the fortunate position that the amount of negative feedback that I'm usually getting is very, very minimal. Still, there is the one or the other video where you get that negative feedback, and sometimes it hits you right at the point where you think, okay, did I really do something wrong? Wasn't that okay? Did I really mess up somehow?
Sure.
If somebody tells me that my hair looks shit, or I don't know, my German accent is horrible, I don't really care. It's, for me, the negative feedback that really pulls me down is from somebody who criticized the work where I put really a ton of hours in.
Yeah.
But as I said, I'm in a fortunate position that this is very minimal.
I'm glad to hear that, and hopefully that's because of obviously the quality of content that you're actually putting in. I think it's very clear to anybody that's seen any of your content on there that there's a lot of hours that go into this. So but you're always going to have bad actors out there. But we've talked about this before, Andrew. I know we've had this discussion about coming up with strategies, because it's, as much as we can talk a good game, how do you insulate yourself from it? How do you let, you mentioned, like, if somebody's personally criticizing you, obviously you ignore it, because there's obviously nothing you can do about it. It's just meant to be hurtful. That's not a positive feedback. But as a creator, you look at the stuff, and when somebody's criticizing the content and something that you've worked on, and it's making you second guess potentially, like, did I do something wrong, or how could I have done that better? Do you have any strategies, one, for disconnecting yourself a little bit? Like, do you make a point of not reading the comments for a while, or any of that? How do you
do you have like a timeout limit, or?
So, to be totally honest, I stopped like reading comments every day, just because for once it takes a ton of time, especially if you want to respond to all of them.
Sure.
But on the other hand, this increases the risk of finding one of those bad ones that really pull you down. The way that I usually do it, when I release a video, the first like 2 or 3 days after that, I'm really regularly checking comments, because I also want to make sure that the content that I made was interesting, and I want to get just involved with the people that also write comments there. But after that, I started to not continue reading the comments anymore. And on the one hand, it hurts, because people are spending their time and sometimes writing really interesting and insightful information in the YouTube comments. But as I said, there's just one under 100 who like, or which really pulls you down. So staying away from it a little bit still. I think it would be the wrong thing to not read them to not read them at all, because it is good for me to reflect on my content. And sometimes if there's a negative comment on a video, it is worth thinking about if that is legitimate or not. But yeah, it's hard. It's hard.
Sure. No, I can appreciate that. From a business side of it, or looking at your product, the video, you probably study your analytics and stuff, and I would assume do a lot of reading around what's effective in terms of all the little ancillary things like thumbnail generation and whatnot. Have you seen any feedback for other content creators out there that suggests that the comment engagement will help the performance of the video? Like, if you're getting a lot of commentary and you're responding and you're encouraging that, obviously you hear people say, leave me a comment all the time, but how much is that actually helping get your video promoted more? Or
I think it's not helping that much anymore as it did in the past. Of course, engagement to videos is important, and it helps you bond with the community. But I think if you're really taking a look at how effective it is in the end, there are different things that you should be focusing way more on. And I think it's still, or it is now, a bit of an urban myth that a lot of comments on a video will also get it recommended to others way more. There should be a certain amount of engagement, but in the end, I think it's not that important anymore as it used to be in the past.
Interesting.
Because they're having different metrics right now.
So maybe you can elaborate on some of that. You mentioned there's more important stuff. What advice do you have for other content creators out there that are watching or listening right now that you would recommend they focus on?
Well, of course, thumbnail and title are the most important things. Everyone should spend a ton of time off. I sometimes also neglect it a little because it usually comes right at the end when I need to release a video, and that's usually like an hour before it really goes live.
Yeah.
But having a good thumbnail and title is way more important than the content that you're having, that you're like producing in the video. Of course, in the end, that's also still important. It unfortunately is, and that leads to like clickbaity titles and thumbnails, of course.
Yeah. Gaming the system,
and there's also a really fine line between being like totally clickbaity and like some others formulated legitimate baiting, just people in watching your video make them interested in what you did. And then, of course, just like keep them watching your video. Try to not ramble too much. Keep it interesting, because if viewers are going to the next video, the view time that you're getting is less, and this is one of the very important factors for the YouTube algorithm in recommending stuff to other potential viewers.
So view time is the critical component, and obviously bringing them in with a good title and a good thumbnail is a big contributor to a lot of that.
Yeah.
It's interesting because that seems backwards from, right? Because you're like, I look at it as like, to draw an analogy to our 3D printing world, I think that somebody that's new to the space might look at the title and the thumbnail as like the spool holder of the whole thing, where it's just like, well, who cares? Just throw it on a peg and you can print from it, right? And it's not a big deal. But the truth is, it's like, it's a fundamental component of what you do,
Yeah.
and maybe that's not the best analogy, but you know what I mean. Like it doesn't get the thought because you're so fixated on creating this great content, and a lot of times people get hung up on the wrong stuff. Like I really want to make sure that might have the best camera out there, and they get focused on the equipment and the technical and the production value over the actual content, right? And so there's probably it's probably good to have both, but the saying content is king, and the amount of work you put into doing your script and all that versus like how much time you're spending messing with your lighting and your audio, I imagine is quite substantial.
It's not that important. It's not that important, and this is a good thing because that enables anyone who has a phone to create content for YouTube. The important thing is, since there's so many creators right now, that you find your niche. Because if you're getting into a market where there are hundreds and thousands of other creators, if you don't have anything unique to yourself or to the content that you're making or to the person that you are, you will not get recognized anymore, and you will not you will have a hard time to grow. And I guess this was also one of the reasons why I was in the fortunate position that my channel grew way faster than I expected, because I found my niche in technical 3D printing videos, in my material tests, and just the way that I did it, because
You did.
nobody was really serving that market yet.
No, absolutely not. Because it requires a completely, I don't want to say completely different skill set, but I look at something that say like a Joel Telling, the 3D printing nerd, does well, or Makes and Breaks, or Angus, and where there's a little bit more of a not that you don't have a personality, but they're more of a cheerleader for the whole thing, but they don't go as deep. And I think there's an interesting blend between you guys, because I think of somebody like Maker's Muse, where he's got a good combination of the two. Joel may be more like top level, but really exciting tech, and this, and then you've got kind of in the middle, and then you fit that niche, I think, really well on the technical side, in a way that is still engaging, is still high quality, very easy to follow, not a lot of rambling, all that stuff, and it's fantastic. And I know you're your own worst critic, but I really do mean that. I very much enjoy watching your content, and I look at it as a completely different type of content that I'm digesting. I love all of it, but for different reasons. I don't know.
Thank you very much.
What do you think, Andrew? I mean, what's
I mean, yeah, I every time a new video comes out from CNCKitchen, I've always got it up. I've always got it watching while we're here working. The content is phenomenal on the technical side, and that's actually some of the things that I wanted to ask about. Is you have a technical background, right? Engineering background of some sort. Can you speak to why you were kind of drawn to this area of the technical 3D printing?
So I used to be, or basically I still am, a structural analysis engineer in aerospace. Now I'm doing a lot of research in metal additive manufacturing, but at the time when I started doing YouTube, I did like stress and strength analysis on aircraft landing gear.
Awesome.
So I was working a lot with material data and finite element analysis and things like that. And then I got into 3D printing, and I saw the opportunity that you can make parts really easy now. But with my background, I wanted to know how strong are they, and there wasn't really any content or proper data sheets around that told me how strong is a material, how strong is the layer adhesion, how should you print something. So that was basically the reason why I thought, okay, yeah, let's just do that myself. And I built myself a universal testing machine. And then I thought, yeah, maybe there are some other guys around who might be interested in that stuff. And now I have like 400,000 subscribers on YouTube.
I don't know many
That's
people that'll
amazing.
just build a UTM machine of their own like that. I love that. That's fantastic. Really quick, we've got you've got a number of kudos going on in the chat right now. People loving your content. They drop everything to watch it as soon as they get the notification that it's out. There was a question from Stephen McCullough, really quick, that I would love to hear your thoughts on. And for anybody that's listening back after the fact, we record this live on YouTube every Friday at 9 a.m. So feel free to join us sometime if you want to get questions out to us or our guests. That's a great way to do it. We also have our little call-in link up here for anybody brave enough to hop on the hotline with us and ask your question in person. You're welcome to do that as well. Operators are standing by. Really quickly, though, sorry, to go back to Steven's question for Stefan here. Do you think it's worth changing titles or thumbnails after uploading when videos aren't performing well? We seem to see a lot of that this day and age. Have you tried that? Have you watched your analytics? Does it work?
Yes. It is. I think it's very important because you usually have a feeling how good a video should perform. And if it is underperforming, it is worth the effort of changing the thumbnail, changing the title. And I usually prepare like 2 to 3 thumbnails before a video goes live that I do have the opportunity, especially in the first 1 or 2 or 3 hours, to change it out and just to see how like the click-through rate is changing, how the views are changing and things like that. And from time to time, that's really saving my videos. It's unfortunate that you need to do that because it doesn't change anything on the content, but
But it obviously matters.
It definitely matters, and it decreases the likelihood of somebody to click on your video and start watching it.
So,
Well, and
go ahead, Andrew.
well, and it's also really interesting too because it's so with the content, being your product, it's so innately tied to the performance, right? So if your video is underperforming, technically, and on the business sense, right, you're making less money, and that's kind of the important thing of how do you balance.
Money on
So
the table.
it's just it's really interesting, to think of it in that way.
So have you come to expect that just for every video you're gonna have to do a change? Because what I want to know is it actually the title and the thumbnail that you're changing to that's actually increasing the performance, or is it just the fact that you're refreshing it that seems to make the algorithm better? Like, have you ever changed either of those things and seen it done worse? Because I don't see anybody sharing that if that happens.
Yes, of course. That definitely happens as well. So I don't think it's just purely the reason that you're changing it to something different. You're usually changing it to something where you hope that you get more of click-through rate or just like people interested in your topics. So it is not only the fact that you're changing something, it is the fact that you're changing something to hopefully more clickable.
Sure. And if it doesn't work, will you go back to the original, or do you try a third? Like, there has to be a limit to how much you want to be messing with that.
So maybe usually I try a third, but if that's not changing anything, I either stay with the one that performed best or go back to the first one or something like that. And there's also the possibility. So what I sometimes use is TubeBuddy, where you do an A/B testing or an automated A/B testing. That's usually after the second or third day, where their service is changing your thumbnail every day. And after 10 days, they're telling you, okay, you got like 2% click-through rate with the first thumbnail and title and 3% with the other one. For the future or for the rest of this video still being online, maybe use the other one, because even though you're not getting the amount of views anymore that you're usually getting within the first like 1 or 2 days or the first week, in the long run, it still might affect how many views you are getting, and for that also like the amount of ad revenue that you're making. And sometimes it even leads to the point where a video that wasn't performing that well takes up again, which is really interesting.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's well. So that brings up another question: is with your content, I would assume that there's some nature essentially of it being kind of evergreen, if you will, where if someone's looking for an issue or that they are wanting to learn about the material, do you see a lot of
Mm.
people coming in later or watching
Mm.
your older videos?
Yeah, definitely. But so there are a ton of evergreen videos, but the amount of views these videos are getting is mostly a bit negligible to your more or less like viral videos. So I have
Oh,
like 2 videos on filament making,
Mhm.
one that is already 4 years old or even older.
Mm.
It's still like pulling in 1,000 or 2,000 views every day, and I'm
oh
completely
wow.
sure um, those who are watching that video don't have anything to do with 3D printing or something in that direction. It's just a video that the YouTube algorithm likes. But
Huh.
yes, definitely, evergreen videos are good and they are important, especially during the times, for example, right now we have been moving to a new studio and didn't make so much content. It still gives you some baseline views to keep the ad
Mm.
revenue from YouTube at a level where you can say, okay, this is enough to pay the bills.
That's
Yeah.
a really interesting way to put it. I'm looking at the correlation between like a product based company
Hmm.
and this content based one. And when you talk about evergreen videos, those are like your flagship product, right? Those are like your cash cow.
Hmm.
You know, maybe it's not a huge seller, but a fad based thing, like something like that. So
Hmm.
when you're planning out your content, are you thinking about I need to maybe try to tailor something that's more that way, or does it just kind of work out that way over time as you've just featured something that you're excited about?
So I try to only work on things where I'm excited about, because if I'm not excited about something, I will not produce good content.
Sure.
But especially since I started working with more and more sponsors, for different sponsor deals, they're expecting a different number of views. So
Mm-hmm.
Interesting.
I don't know, for some of the sponsors, they say, okay, they want at least 150,000 views on a video within the first 30 days. So, of course, I'm in advance thinking about a topic where I think I will reach that amount of views, because I know that if I'm, for example, just doing a review of a product, that will not get that amount of views.
Mm.
So, of course, I need to plan a bit in advance. Of course, it's affecting the content that I make, but in the end, for me, it needs to be a business decision, because that stuff right here now, well, starts paying my bills and pays the rent in here and the lights and everything. So I need to work on the things that get me a certain amount of views still, but I still try to stay true to what I usually do.
Yeah. Yeah. Obviously, if it's not something you're excited about, like that comes through in the video to some extent too. The energy that you bring to it
Yeah.
and stuff like that. That's an interesting point. On I want you to stay if you don't mind for a second, because like I said, I think there's a lot of people that are into content creation that are listening
Hmm.
and watching right now, and we're getting a lot of commentary. I did a lot of A/B testing back in my web developer days in terms of like looking at stuff that would work on websites like
Mm,
homepages and stuff like that. It's a phenomenal tool,
mm.
and now that there are these automated systems that you talk about, it sounds like you have one that you've tried, or I don't know if you use it regularly, but leveraging these tool sets to really try to capitalize as much as you can, not leaving money on the table for your content out there, sounds important. Are there other tools that you found that help that process along in terms of feature? Because I know there's a lot of companies that want you to like, oh, we'll help market and we'll do all this,
Hmm.
but what's really moving the needle in terms of bringing in more views for your content, you think?
I think it's partly talking to other content creators and just sharing ideas and techniques that work for them and trying to
Okay.
apply them on your own process. Um, of course, you can work with other companies, and they might help you find the right content that you need to work on, maybe create you more beautiful thumbnails and things like that. Of course, that is helping out, but in the end, you need to understand the system yourself. Otherwise, you either fail or you need to hire somebody who does exactly that.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Makes sense.
Yeah, we talk about that a lot too. You know
Hmm.
and as you grow, Stefan, I mean, maybe you can elaborate a little bit more. Obviously, the amount of time you have to do everything, and thinking about like, who is it that as you grow you would look to bring on first? Is it an editor? Is it a
Mm,
producer? Is it a back
mm.
office admin person? What do you think?
Um, so I'm now right at the point, because before I just worked from home and I couldn't hire anyone. I did not want to have anyone in my kitchen other than like my family.
CNC, get out of my
So
kitchen. Yeah, it's
yeah.
different. Different.
So I'm really currently in the process of thinking about in which person should I invest in that gives me the most return on investment. And of course, it's editing, because I'm okay at editing, but it takes me a ton of time. I'm not effective, and I'm not always that happy to do it
Sure.
or to do. But just the process, how I work, I think currently it's really hard to get somebody in there who does the editing for me. I tried that a couple of times. It worked out okay, but it didn't save me that amount of time I was really hoping for. But of course, I want to try something like that out. And on the other hand, I'm thinking about hiring maybe a writer or something in that direction. Somebody who just finds a topic, does research, does the writing. Somebody with whom I can also discuss about things, because this is something I'm really lacking in here. You're always working on your project by yourself. You don't get a
Yeah.
Hmm.
lot of input from different directions, and that results in the end that maybe your final product is not as good as it could be, and maybe you're sometimes just missing things. And
Hmm.
I guess an editor could, for once, help me during that process, and of course create more content, so that I don't only like produce one video every 2 weeks, but maybe a video every week. And of course, another thing for me, I'm really wanting to get into is just the videos that I already make in English, do another voiceover in German, and publish them on a German
Ooh.
channel, because
Yeah.
that is a ton of wasted potential. But currently, I just don't have the capacity to do it.
Sure. Well, and I'm wondering if that might be something where automation might be able to help. Have you looked into any of the services out there, or even something like a Mechanical Turk, where you can actually hire, or Fiverr, or anything like somebody to
Mm,
just do that transcript or do that,
mm,
dub over? Do you think that would perform? I mean, obviously the bulk of the production's already done, so it seems like it could
mm.
be low hanging fruit, but I don't know.
I think in the end, a possibility would be for me to just do the translation. That's usually for a script like 2 hours of work, then another hour of doing another voiceover, and then just giving that voiceover to an editor who takes the English version of a video, puts the German voiceover under there, and just aligns a couple of things that it goes in line with what I'm talking about, and then just re-uploading it to a German channel.
How do you think that that would do? Because I've seen a couple different German channels. Obviously, you work with Tom
Mm,
Sadlander on your podcast. We'll talk
mm,
about that in a second. But what I've heard just anecdotally after asking that question a while is that it doesn't. You're still going to get way more bang for your buck producing for the English audience, English
yeah.
speaking audience.
Of course, it definitely will, because for once, the ad revenue in Germany is horrible. It's like
Ah,
half or a third of the American ad revenue, for example.
Oh
Um,
wow.
of course, there are a ton of German viewers already, but there's still a lot of viewers here in Germany who just don't like to watch English content. Even though I'm always having like the closed captions under my video and things like that, they're just not comfortable watching that. And I think this would be a reason to also get them into the boat. But for me, one of the most important things is, and we might be getting into that topic later, we started selling products, and for us it's really easy to ship to Germans, but my main viewers are currently in the US. So currently we're shipping more than 50% of our products over to the US, which is okay, but it's a pain. And I would really like to sell way more in Germany and is also establish my brand here way better.
So you're jumping ahead on my script a bit, but that's totally fine because I'm very excited. Part of the reason, guys, that I brought Stefan in here, one, he obviously offers a completely unique perspective, not only as a content creator, but as a foreign national to like our audience. So it's fascinating to me, what business rules may translate over in terms of your culture and stuff like that. But obviously, a product based company and a content-based company are two completely different things. And I bet I don't know how you're not completely overwhelmed by all of it. It's there's so much to manage, and they're very different paths that you take oftentimes.
I would not have started selling products if it wasn't for like a business partner that told me, okay, you're stupid, you need to sell stuff under your brand, because I told him a bunch of times that, for example, I have millions of views on threaded inserts videos, and of course I have affiliate links under those videos, and I know how much of these products, or how much products I help to sell.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
in the end, of course, yes, you're making your 3 to 6% affiliate revenue on that product, but if you would sell that yourself, you would earn way more.
Oh, absolutely.
So that was the point where we said, okay, let's take a look at that. Let's try to find a supplier who can supply these parts in a good quality for us, and just sell them under our own brand, because I sometimes feel as if I'm the Mr. Heat set inserts for 3D prints, and it would be stupid if I wouldn't sell threaded inserts.
So, I mean, it's fantastic, and I've had this conversation with other content creators too. Is that as you get big enough to have an established brand, it makes a ton of sense, and in a lot of ways, you're just lining other people. Affiliate links are just so silly, what you're getting paid as compared to what you would be making. And for a lot of these products, like threaded inserts and stuff like that, like you can absolutely find a supplier, and you can start. Now, obviously, there's other. That's a gross oversimplification. You may think, oh, it's just as easy as like, I'll just get them, I'll put them in a bunch of bins, and then we'll just ship them out. But then you quickly realize, the mechanics of having machinery to either count out and bag at a specific number, or having to sit down and weigh and do all that. Like there's a lot of time and effort that goes into, putting 100 of something or 1,000 of something together for somebody.
Yeah.
So what did it feel like when you first got started? I would agree with your partner in that, like, hey, man, you're leaving some money on the table. There's a really big opportunity here. But what did you learn when you first started doing it? Did it feel worth it? Did it feel painful?
So to be totally honest, I haven't seen any money yet. Because all the money we earned so far, we directly had to put into ordering new products, because we have been sold out like all of the times,
right?
Within like a couple of weeks. The good thing is that I'm currently not relying on that money, and it helps us to like establish the business, and at some point our working capital, some of that will also flow into my pockets. In the beginning, it was feeling I wasn't 100% sure how I should feel about that, because especially if I would, for example, in the future do more videos on threaded inserts, would they be purely so that I can sell more? How can I still add value for my viewers and not give them the impression that I only want to sell something. This was really hard, and I'm still trying to figure out how we will do that in the future.
So
But I think this is something we just have to figure out.
yeah, that's an interesting conundrum to have, and I think it all comes down to the way you frame it, right? And so if it's presented in a way where it's like, hey, look, this is another way you can support my channel,
No.
that seems a lot different than what we talked about at the top of the show, shilling, just getting out there and I'm just trying to hawk my wares to the world. And I think as you get more and more into the business side of it and you realize, hey, this is my profession, you're going to get people hating on you no matter what. You start to care less. It's just like, fine, those people are going to be out there. At the end of the day, this is what's keeping my family fed and all that stuff. You're still in the starting phases. I mean, Andrew and I have both been there where it's like, we didn't start making money for the first couple of years because every dollar was going right back in. Like I wasn't full time with this until 2 years ago. So even though the company's been established for 6 years, it was a side hustle the same way that, your channel started. I think that's how a lot of people get a start, especially in this space, right? We like the comfort and stability and, of dipping our toe in and just kind of seeing what it feels like. It sounds like you're doing it at a good, sustainable pace, but obviously, you want to start seeing more return on that over time, and you don't want to be typecast as the threaded insert guy. I can appreciate that. Interesting challenges all around, but you have a fantastic opportunity given that you've built a brand first. And I think most companies that get started do not have that luxury. It is surprising to me that more content creators do not do this. I think we're seeing more of it now. I don't know. I mean, I think of,
I agree.
I think of lttstore.com like every time, it's like Linus Tech Tips and it's like the merch, plugs and stuff like that. Like it's the same phenomenon. I don't know what it's like for professional athletes in Germany, but it's like very quickly, the top tier professional athletes here realize you make way more money in, endorsements and stuff like that and product placement over time than you ever do getting paid for the sport itself. Yeah. And so that kind of applies here as well. A 400,000, I didn't mean to cut your, subscriber following is a lot of magnitude there. Eyeballs. I mean, you can very easily see that if you mention something on your channel at any point, like it will absolutely, there will people that just like, Stefan talked about it. I'm going to buy it right now. Like that's a lot of power that you have in marketing ability.
It definitely is, and it is especially interesting. So I started like putting a sponsor in front of every video or into every video for the last couple of months, and of course I get some revenue from there. But now, since we are starting to sell our own products, I need to start thinking about, okay, maybe screw these sponsors on the channel and just put advertisement for our own product in front of every video. If that makes me more money, I'm actually happy to do that, because then I don't need to shill for, I don't know, an audiobook company or something like that, and I can just market my own products.
Sure.
One of the problems is that my main viewer base is in the US. 40% of my viewers are there, and serving the American market, especially now at the start, is kind of hard for us, because of course we can ship to the US, but there are shipping costs, and for you guys there might be import taxes and things like that. Shipping times are very long, so we need to start thinking about how can we directly start selling in the US market. Yeah. And this is also one of the reasons why I'll be at Murph. No.
Shilling in person. That's exciting. So.
No, not shilling a person, but just looking for opportunities to sell directly, to find resellers, basically. So I was really happy that Joe Prusha reached out to me like almost a year ago and asked me, hey, do you want to sell your threaded inserts on our website? And I said, yeah, great, super great opportunity for us.
Sure.
But of course, they do have better ways of shipping, and but they are still shipping from the Czech Republic. So
Mm-hmm.
shipping times and shipping rates are going to be way higher than in the US. And this is the reason why for once I'm thinking about a German channel, because then I can serve the European market way better,
Yeah.
or the German, Austrian, and Swiss market better. And then also, of course, look for American resellers to directly sell my products over where you guys are and where my main like viewer base is, because only this way it is really worth selling products.
Yeah.
Worth, not
That
worth.
makes sense.
I suspect you're not going to have any problem finding interest at Murph
Yeah.
or beyond, my friend. That people, would love to tie their brand to yours. It is you've established a fantastic reputation, doing quality content. Obviously, that translates. Now, I haven't used your threaded inserts, but my assumption of your brand, based on what I know of you, is you are going to have quality product, and that's a very powerful, brand value that you've established there. So I have no doubt that you will be successful with that and any other product that you decide to layer on. And I think you're doing it at a reasonable pace, and I'm very excited for you. Obviously, the Prusa effect is huge, being that we sell. Repbox, I think, is one of the first outside vendors to actually be able to sell in the Prusa shop. Just seeing the impact that has on the business, and how appreciative I am of Joe offering the same opportunity to me, because we would not be where we were it not for that. And that opened up entire new market and exposure for us in Europe in a way that I wouldn't have been able to do, not nearly as quickly. You learn really quick that, given the finite amount of hours in your day, the more opportunity that you have to, put that off on somebody who's already doing that well, versus establish your own distribution channels. That's worth giving the 30% of margin up to you.
And that's what I was
or
gonna.
more.
I was going to ask is how you are actually. So I know shipping over here to the United States is cumbersome and difficult. Like, we have a fairly large market in Europe as well, and a lot of it is still unreachable to us. And so as being a product company, there's a lot that goes into that fulfillment. So how is that worked into your current lifestyle as a content creator? Do you have a business partner that's helping you with this? I think you mentioned a little bit. Is this something you're doing yourself?
Yeah.
Like, what's going on?
No, it wouldn't be possible for me to do it myself. So I have a business partner
Hmm.
who's basically managing everything around the products, and we just like chat regularly on how to proceed, or I make new drawings for a product and things like that. But the amount of work I'm putting into that venture is quite low at the moment. The thing I'm putting into that venture is my brand, and making sure that we do the quality control and we're finding the products that are worth making. And of course, I do have the network for finding resellers and doing all of the advertisement.
That makes sense.
Yeah. No, and like I said, I think that's a powerful. You have a fantastic 1-2 punch of revenue streams in both content and product now. That is enviable for sure. It's weird because I look at going the other way, where I know that I need to do a much better job with my marketing and putting stuff out there. I get questions all the time about how does your product work? How can you make it better? Like, and it's not my expertise. And so it feels like a big thing for me to try to get into that.
But this is the problem, that a product well succeeds or fails, unfortunately, depending on the marketing you put into there. You can have such a good product. If you don't do any marketing, nobody's going to buy it and you're going to fail. If you have a horrible product but you do enough marketing, you might still be able to succeed, unfortunately.
That's so true.
So for a product company, as you guys are, I think it is important to seriously like figure out how much is enough that it helps me to like grow the brand and everything, but not so much that it takes all the time away from like making new products and things like that.
Right.
For me, it is just a different revenue stream, because I have to diversify myself. If, like, for example, now I don't release a video for 3 or 4 weeks, my YouTube revenue is gonna be down in the basement. It's gonna be horrible. But I do have the advantage that we are still selling products, that I still have my patrons, that I still do a bit of affiliate sales and things like that. And all those revenues at the end help me to sustain quite a constant income and provide for my family.
Sure. Well, and being
Like,
diversified, you don't want to have.
and this is important.
Yeah. Yeah. No.
Hmm.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's a struggle that we deal with all the time.
Yeah.
Like with us, we're hyper focused on adhesives, and that's all we do. But we're constantly trying to figure out how do we start layering on other elements that go along with this, so that we can start having more than just one particular thing.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, and I think that's why we see, one of the strategies that people use, and we've seen a lot of discussions about people, merging, as a means of diversifying without
Mm,
necessarily having to front all that cost to create new verticals for yourself, and so I think that can be a powerful
Yeah.
way to do stuff if you have that ability, like combining forces. Like, I really believe in the power of synergy. We have a fantastic community
Mm.
here, and there is no shortage of opportunity. Like, that is very
mhm.
clear. It's just a
Yeah.
question of like, what's the low hanging fruit? What do you pick to invest your time and energy in? I think you raise a really good point, Stefan, that investing in your brand cannot be understated in terms of a marginal product can do incredibly well under a powerful brand, and a
Mm.
powerful product can do incredibly terribly under a non-existent brand. So it's
Yeah.
that should tell you what that power is. Now, that said, it's not easy to establish that reputation. It's taken you some time to get there via a different means, and obviously, there was a lot of time where you were not making money. It was still a side hustle for you to like build up your channel and your brand and stuff like. But now that can start to pay dividends, and you can start to be picky and choose what you want to do, and so that's the reward, right?
Yeah. Definitely is.
Yeah. Man, this is fantastic, and I think a lot of you guys in the chat. Yeah, I don't know what you guys are thinking in terms of your strategy because I think when we get into it, we don't often take the time to step back and think about, well, what is my strategy here? Like, how
Mhm.
how will I always say, even as long as we've been in this business, like, I don't have a marketing problem, I have an awareness problem. Like, there are people every day
Mm.
that say, like, I had never heard of you before, I saw your thing
Mhm.
on so and so's channel or on
Mm.
this Reddit thread or whatever. And you realize, like, we get caught up in our little niche and we think that everybody kind of knows everybody, but there are so many people that are new to this
Mm.
one community. This is a niche within niches a lot of the times too.
Mm.
Mhm.
um and to be able to get your signal out over all the noise, all the other people talking about all the awesome things they're doing, is such a challenge in this day and age. And that goes back to what you were saying, like, you really need to find what distinguishes you, what is your value beyond what anybody else is giving, and that is what will help drive and grow. And that's a hard thing for somebody to sit down and truly think about. And sometimes it takes, you're going to try. You said you started
Mm.
with kind of kitchen content, and you don't really do the kitchen content anymore. So it takes some navigating the path to figure it out, right? But we should all be as lucky as to get where you are, and I can only imagine where you'll be in the next couple of years. That growth happens fast once you hit that critical mass, right?
Mhm.
Yeah.
Uh
It definitely is.
How are you feeling
But
about it? Is it stressful to you still, or like, do you see a path where it feels sustainable and growable, and you're excited to hire? You're obviously in a new space. We haven't talked about that, but that's a good sign of growth.
Um, I think it's more stressful than it used to be in the beginning because I'm more depending on like my company, my brand, and everything, just for like getting revenue and supporting my family. Um, of course, when you're getting to the point where you see that it's more sustainable and you can be picky and you don't need to do every brand deal where you get like tons of emails every day, this relaxes you also way more. You know that if that doesn't work out anymore at some point, you have made enough connections that you can get a job like anywhere.
Yeah.
But I never wanted to be self-employed, especially since I have been working for 15 years in a big aerospace supplier company
Yeah.
where you are like paid okay to well, but you get like healthcare is paid
All of the perks.
and everything. So, and when you are sick for a week or 4 weeks, nobody cares. You're still getting you're getting paid. We have currently almost 60 days of holiday there,
Wow.
of paid
Wow.
holiday.
The wrong country for labor
Wrong
rates.
country.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Um, I think it's
So just leaving that all behind is hard for me, and I need to get to the point where I say, okay, it's worth putting all of the time in here, and also the like the risk that you're having of being self-employed, of having your own company, and being the like the smith of your own fortune. I don't know if that is a proper idiom.
That works. That works. I
Yeah.
know what you're getting at. It's funny because I'm the opposite. It's weird to hear somebody say like, "Well, I kind of fell into being an entrepreneur. I don't
Yeah.
really want to be." And because there's people that are just killing for that to try to make it that way. Like to me,
Yeah.
I'm the opposite where it's like if I have to go get a job and work for somebody else, like that
Mhm.
is the ultimate form of failure to me. Like I like controlling my
Yeah.
own destiny, but it stinks. Like we have moments where it's like I'm not paying myself because I need enough money to pay for inventory or payroll or any of that stuff. Like but the promise of, I don't want to say infinite, but theoretically infinite upside as compared to the
Mhm.
security. Like, yes, your risk tolerance is higher, but your
Mhm.
potential to, if you make it, like the where you can go with it. And I don't have dreams of being a billionaire or wealthy in that regard, but but feeling like I can actually get to financial security and an
Mhm.
earlier retirement age. And I
Mhm.
want to invest all of that energy and gray hair and stuff up front. So hopefully I can get there quicker. Which a lot of people would say maybe that's backwards. Like by the time I get there, my body is not going to be able to do, the same things that it can do now. Like I'm not going to be able to go climb mountains in the same way. I don't know. Nobody knows the answers for
Yeah.
that for sure.
I,
But
I understand. I think it's a very German thing, and especially Southern German, where there is, of course, a ton of entrepreneurship, but being employed in a big company is worth so much. And I know so many friends and family who have been working for 40, 45, 50 years at the same company
Wow.
just because it was secure. We don't change our jobs very often because we like the just like secure, having a secure income and things
uh-huh.
like that. I think that's quite a bit different
Sure.
to to the US.
Yeah.
It's certainly different to us, at least to me.
So
I
you
wouldn't have it any other way.
you still have your full-time job, so you're doing all of this on top of your full-time job still. And is that right?
So no, I don't. Don't still have a full time job. I'm still working like 2 days a week at
Part
my like at my normal company
Okay.
or at my normal job, but purely for the reason it doesn't really make sense in like for the money. But the job that I have there in metal additive manufacturing research is so interesting. I really love my colleagues there.
Yeah.
It really helps me to stay sane if at least like 2 days in a week I work together with other like-minded people than just
Sure.
working for yourself.
Sure.
And I think for me, as being German and Southern German, it helps me to retain the possibility to get back to a normal job quite easily if that YouTube thing doesn't work out.
Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah. Yeah.
It
Well,
gives me peace of mind.
let me ask you this though: do you feel like at some point, and I guarantee you're going to get there, I just know it, you're going to have to decide, because you can't necessarily do it with one foot in and one foot out, as we like
Yep.
to say.
Yeah. I guess that point will come sooner than I really want. I maybe should have done that already for a while, because it stresses me out having like working more or less 2 jobs.
Sure.
But as I said, it's hard for me to make that decision, and it would really pain me to say, okay, I'm not doing that anymore because the work is interesting. I really love my colleagues, and also like telling my family. I have just a German that says, okay, I've been working at a company for 10, 15, 20 years, and I quit my job to do something on my own, is something very unusual.
Sure.
Wow.
They say, "What's wrong with that guy?" Huh?
Yeah,
That's
Yeah.
so
what's wrong with
it's
that
so
guy?
crazy to hear, because here, like in the US, that's oftentimes celebrated.
Yeah,
It's
Maybe
crazy.
not. Maybe not appropriately always too. It's interesting because I think
Sure.
I've warmed up only more recently to the idea that a YouTuber is an actual profession. But and it very much is. But I'm with you. Like, I think I have that old school mentality to hear that people, like, just don't think of it as highly, even though there's a ton. Obviously you can make a lot of money being a successful YouTuber, but you can also make a lot of money as a pro sports, but like to be at the top levels where you're actually doing that is a completely different thing. And it can probably, we've talked about this before, you're reliant on a third party system here. They can take it away theoretically at any point. Now, I don't think
Hmm.
that's a true danger, but obviously they talk about the changes to the algorithm, your dependence on your livelihood, and how many people feel like they've been completely screwed by YouTube because they just changed the way that they were
yeah.
doing payouts. And does that, so you must have some concerns about that and wanting to hedge your bets or have diversification as a result of that
Yeah.
as well.
Well, that is the reason for diversification. If I would only be reliant on the YouTube ad revenue, it would be horrible. For example, right now, I don't know, YouTube changed something in the algorithm. But currently, like my ad revenue is half of a third, as it was last year in
Wow.
November.
Oh, wow.
And if you're only depending on the ad revenue, that would be a really hard cut.
Oh, wow. Yeah, then that's significant.
Mm.
And
Hmm.
I've heard other people talking
Yeah.
about, and this seems to happen cyclically with,
Mm.
I don't know. Obviously, there's more and more
Yeah.
people. It seems like every day on the platform trying to make it, and that dilutes it for everyone.
Mm.
So that can't help. But I can appreciate that must feel like a challenge and something that
Mm.
prevents that security. So I applaud you for having the presence of mind to do the diversification. And I think it's good that
Yeah.
you're maintaining. Honestly, Stefan, I'd say um, it's very smart to maintain those contacts, if no other reason that you feel like you're on an island when you strike out on your own. In a lot of ways, you are.
Hmm.
And so having those contacts, having those conversations, having different parts of your brain activated is very valuable
Mm.
in a lot of regards. So I hope that you're able to continue doing that in some way.
It definitely is the thing that I started enjoying since the point when I knew that YouTube would be self-sustainable, is that I stopped giving a shit what like my supervisor said, or I don't know, because I can always tell them, okay, I'm
I
here
don't need you,
because
man.
I'm I'm here for the fun, and if you don't need me anymore, fire me. I don't know.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, this makes things at work easier for me, because yeah, you don't need to do everything that you're always asked for.
Your stock rises when your dance card fills up, man. I mean, that's what it is. It's the more in demand you are. I mean, I mean, I know it feels crappy, but that's the way that life is.
Yeah.
And so, yeah,
Oh,
I don't.
man.
If you don't need it, we should all be aspiring toward getting to a place where you're in the demand. You're in that level of demand. But
Yeah.
obviously that takes a lot of work. That's not an easy thing to do. We got to wrap up because we're delaying your pizza time, and I would never want to take away from family pizza night for sure. Can you take one
So
more
the
question?
babies are.
Oh, go ahead.
I can take as many questions. Well,
No,
as
not
many
as many.
questions as my battery still lasts.
All right, we're on the battery clock. Just a quick one from Chris in the chat, and I think it's a great one to wrap up with because I love talking about this just in our industry in general. Where do you see the industry headed? What innovations right now are you excited about? Doesn't have to be 3D printing alone, but let's talk about maker, creator, any of those things. What gets you excited?
Ooh, what gets me excited?
I know there's stuff. I know you're excited. You're working on something right now that
I
you're excited about, I'm sure.
I I'm working on a lot of stuff that's exciting. I am excited about that technology is getting way more affordable and approachable. I wish I had all the like Arduino stuff and 3D printing community and things like that when I was still young.
Oh man, me too.
And this is getting way more easier, and yeah, and this is one of the things I'm really excited about because I love teaching. I love it when I see like young people being really happy and like are excited about technology and the things they can do nowadays. So this is definitely something. Well, if you're talking about 3D printing, of course, it goes in the direction of more consumer friendly. Maybe in the future having really like the opportunity to print your spare parts and things like that, and
Sure.
just using that technology to really help you in your everyday life and not just printing out the 100th Banshee boat or something like that.
Yeah. What about you, Andrew? What are you excited about?
What's there not to be excited about, right?
Yeah, that's such a non-answer.
No, I mean I'm really excited for I think the 3D printing industry is really going through a material science kind of phase where we're seeing a lot more advanced polymers and
Oh
materials
yeah.
coming out, trickling down from kind of the top end industry. Metal 3D printing is becoming more affordable, a lot more common. We were just at Rapid, right? And we saw a ton of
Oh,
advances in metal 3D printing.
so much stuff there. Yeah.
With new materials coming out, this is getting to be easier and more affordable. It's going to be a manufacturing revolution at some point. It already is, but it's going to be more so in the future.
Well, not just
So,
materials, but processes. Like we're seeing these new
mhm.
processes, the cold fusion additive, the
Yep.
ultrasonics, the like, just these really new creative ways to kind of add on the tunneling. What was it? The electron beam forming. I mean, just
Yeah.
mind blowing. What you would thought was science fiction stuff. And then
Mhm.
just seeing how that comes down. For me, I get more excited about like a lot of the support systems, the automation systems, the vision systems that really enable the taking the production and getting it to final shippable product or more final product than some people are currently willing to. Like we see a lot of stuff in multi-jet fusion now because it presents as just a much more polished part that people are willing to
Mhm.
accept instead of what we know as traditional FDM type prints. It just puts you at a
Yep.
whole nother level. And then seeing metal and stuff like that become more affordable, sintering options, multicolor. Some of the stuff Stratasys was showing off with their I don't remember their specific terminology for
Objet
it.
lines,
The
yeah.
object lines and stuff like that.
Polyjets.
With both material and color and all. I mean, just the future is bright for sure. It's a fantastic industry to be in. We're lucky to have people like Stefan that can dive into the nuts and bolts and really break it down in a way that makes it understandable and accessible to our community. And even though I talked to Joel about this a lot, even though a lot of people complain that those are high-end multi-million-dollar industrial machines, why should I care about this? Because what we're missing a lot of times is like the future of the workforce that's coming up. Like a lot of their exposure to this starts now, and yes, maybe they're learning FDM and simpler stuff, but you're getting them the good baseline to get them into the future tech that's out there. So I mean, I just think it's fantastic. But that's a bit of a digression. There's lots to be excited about. And Stefan, thank you. We've taken up more than enough of your time. I really appreciate you sharing your experience. We'll have to have you back at some point to follow up on how the product sales is doing. I don't doubt that we're going to see your stuff in the U.S. here very shortly. I know that you're going to have some great networking opportunities at Murph, but I hope you also come and just enjoy the show and
I will
come hang out with us a bit in the booth. Midwest Rep Festival plug, guys, coming up. What is it? June 24th through the 24, 25,
26th or something. Yeah,
I'll be there. 24th
to 26th, I guess.
Yeah. So it should be a good time.
Thank you very much for having me on the podcast.
Yeah.
Or live show, or
the
however
discussion.
you're calling it. It was a pleasure. The discussion.
Yeah. And enjoy your evening. Very best to you. And I look forward to seeing you really soon, man. Take care.
Yeah.
And for everybody in the chat, thank you so much for your questions. We'll catch you not next week, probably 2 weeks at this point, but we'll obviously put that out there. We had a fantastic time. Like I said, it's great seeing you guys, and I wish everybody the best of weekends. Keep on making, everybody. Till next time.
Bye-bye.
And we're clear.
All right.